All right, welcome back into the channel. Today, me and Steve finish off our positional rankings. We did quarterbacks, we did running backs, and now we are talking wide receivers today. Steve from the Fantasy Trading Room. You see the logo behind him, the website in the description, his YouTube channel, Dynasty Trading Room, in the description as well, excuse me. Player profiles, film breakdown, whatever you need to win your Dynasty Fantasy Football Leagues, it's all there. Today, we are ranking wide receivers, the top 8 for the 2025 NFL Draft Class. There is going to be some conversation that's had here, absolutely. But me and Steve have the same number 1. Steve is absolutely in love with the prospect. It is his number 1 offensive skill position player. That means if Steve was on the clock, and Ashton Genty's on the board, he is taking this man. Take it away, Steve.
Yeah, my wide receiver 1 and my number 1 skill player in general is going to be Ted McMillan from Arizona. He is a unicorn of a prospect in my opinion, and I get people are letting him slide down for the stupidest reasons. You know, you have the
prospect fatigue. That's
exactly.
Why.
The dude didn't love watching film as a freshman in the lunchroom at Arizona, everything else. I would say before I dive into why I love him, I guess we can start with the one valid criticism while we're here is he does struggle a bit against corners on press, and these guys are often smaller. You would like him to play up to his size more, considering he's 6'4", 219. I think there's more in his game. His routes aren't as crispy, but again, we got people talking, evaluating routes of Emeka Egbuka and a Matthew Golden, the same as a guy that's 6'4", 219. Like,
I think for the size, they're crisp.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's all about context. But what he does well is he has an unreal catch radius. I mean, that's clear and above. You obviously see that. He can go up and high point the ball extremely well. His hands are great. And the thing he does well that you would not expect is, I would go as far to say, is he is an elite yak receiver. He moves so fluidly. Guys that are 6'4" should not be able to move like that.
4.48 speed at 6'4" is insane.
Some people are saying it wasn't. I heard some things about it was like 4.48 to 5'4", 5'4". Either way, it's
the guy's a gazelle in the open field.
Yes. No, he is unreal. I remember that one game against New Mexico State, not the best competition, so that's not like my main point, but my point is just watch how he moves with the ball in his hands. He is a guy that could go down 40 yards down the field and moss you in a one-on-one situation, and then can turn around and catch the ball in a 7-yard slant route and turn that into a 7-yard touchdown. There are few receivers in the league that can do that, and his upside is through the roof with McMillan.
Who would you comp him to? I want to ask before I tell you the comp that I heard.
Yeah, I mean, the comp I'm hearing between circles is Drake London, but I think he's a mix of Drake London and Mike Evans.
That's exactly what I hear as well.
Yeah, but I don't think
Evans and Drake London.
I don't think his yak is close to either of those. I think London might be a little bit more polished as a separator per se, but McMillan is much more explosive with the ball in his hands. That's like the differentiator. But body type, overall archetype, yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and listen, this is going to be simple analysis from me real quick because you kind of laid it all out. This is a big man sport in some ways. And when you're 6'4", 215 and can run a 4.48, you're a difference maker. You are a freak of nature human being. And when you pile that up to a guy with really, really solid route running for his size, elite speed, a guy who could get you at all 3 levels, and a guy who throw it up to him and he's got some great hands and can make a contested catch. Yeah, like that's the guy that I want to take off the draft board. There are some really solid wide receivers in this class, but in my opinion, none of them touch the upside of Ted McMillan. This is a potential all-pro wide receiver. This is a potential all-decade wide receiver. You have been high on him for so long, and I listened to you talk about him, and you were talking about him before I even started diving into the film, and I kind of thought going into this process that Travis Hunter was going to be my wide receiver 1, and then I put on the film, and I just sat back and said, there's no way I could go up there and talk that anybody's better than this guy in this class. and that if I was on the board, I'd be taking anybody else because Tet McMillan is pretty easily my wide receiver 1 in this class. That being said, who is your wide receiver 2?
At 2, I have Travis Hunter, and really the only thing McMillan can't do is play cornerback, which
yeah, and
Hunter can
that's
do,
the thing, though. If you're not going to play Travis Hunter at cornerback, two is a steep price.
I agree. I'm there as well. But no, with Hunter, I think he has upside that is close to McMillan as well because with him, you haven't scratched the surface yet. He has not played the position full-time ever in his life. And that shows in his weaknesses. I think that his ball skills are unreal. I think he can just pluck the ball out of the air like no one's business. His routes are extremely crisp for the most part. And he also is extremely good in contested catch scenarios despite being a kind of slender build. But I have concerns that he's not the freak in nature, from a frame perspective like McMillan is. He is he's sub 200 pounds. I know that for a fact. And he just lacks a bit of nuance across his game. His routes are, at his peak, his routes are very crisp. But on a down-to-down basis, it's not there as much. I think technique, just overall off the line, he could work on that a little bit. And I think that'll come with him playing the position more. But he's just not as gifted as McMillan, in my opinion. And I don't think he is also the type of receiver where you could pair his elite catch radius with, I think his yak skills aren't as good as McMillan either, even though he's much smaller than him.
Yeah, I think Travis Hunter has the best hands in college football, and I think some of that comes from playing corner as well. I think, he's got sticky gloves or something out there because how many times watching Colorado you watch Shador just kind of go, let me just try and get this to Travis, and Travis make the play. You ran out of times to count it. Another thing that he has going for him is the fact that he plays corner. It's a little bit easier for him to read what the opposing corner is going to do. And when it comes to football IQ, it's hard pressed to say there's anybody better in the class than Travis Hunter because he's a superstar on both sides of the football. That being said, some of the yak stuff, I do agree with you. Not as explosive, especially as some of the other players in this class that we're going to get to. There are some yak demons that we're going to talk about. But Travis Hunter, best hands in the class, in my opinion. Elite catch radius, especially for his size. Great route running. And if you committed him to the position full time, which I don't think is going to happen, but if you did, there is all pro level ceiling for him as well. I think him and Tet both could be future all pros. Absolutely. Your number 3 wide receiver. I think we're going to agree on the top 3, but we'll see.
I have Burden at 3.
I do not. Okay.
I
have Burden at 6.
Really? I didn't like Burden as much coming into this year. And even though but that was more so just because people were threatening McMillan's wide receiver 1, status of the class. And when you say I was on him early, I was on him since last year.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, please, Burden is not better than Ted. Like, I was pleading with
Yeah, I don't have Burden better than Ted. I have Burden out at 6.
People finally agree with me a year later, but I think Burden's been getting a little too much hate. And the off-the-field stuff, like the rumors we've heard, like, I can't really speak on that. But
yeah.
As a player, he really impressed me on how good he was versus man because he played a lot in the slot and he was used extremely weirdly at Missouri. Like, they used him as like a gadget guy. They used him in like the backfield.
Yeah, I don't like the assumption that he's just a gadget guy because when you watch the tape, he is a true wide receiver. He's not just your Rondale Moore type. Like, that's how I felt about Rondale Moore coming out of college. I think Burden is a better prospect than Rondale Moore. I don't think he's the shiftiest player. I don't think he's the shiftiest wide receiver, which is what a lot of people will write home about with Burden is that he's super shifty, and I don't disagree there, but I think they're shiftier in this draft, but I do think he has the ability to be a very solid, deep threat player as well, and I don't think that gets talked about enough.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think looking at I was looking at a chart when his success by route by reception perception, he actually wins against man very well. I believe this tweet has him with a better success rate on man coverage versus Matthew Golden, Emeka Egbuka, and Jayden Higgins, which is very interesting. Really, he was green in his corner routes, green in his out routes, green in his digs, and green in his curl routes. So I think he is a little bit underrated there. And because myself, I was like, they're playing him in the slot, they're using him in all these gadgety ways. Like, that's probably what he is. But once I actually turned on the film, I saw that was a little bit further than the truth. I think the question I have is, I will say this is what I can say from watching the film. It seems like when things got hard, he was not playing up to the competition. Like, he could have been better. Sure, I get the quarterback play was not the best, but at the same time, I mean, you could definitely have worse quarterbacks than Brady Cook. Like, he wasn't that bad. And with Burden, he just doesn't impress me in as many ways as I would like. And I'm trying to pull up one more stat about, pure production, because we saw the production dip, but the film is one thing, but when you're getting outproduced by Theo Wees in the same offense, like, that's where I have some questions. I don't really care how bad your quarterback is when that's happening. So I like him. I think upside's there, and that's the reason why I have him there, because what I saw in 2023 was a lot different, but I got really scared from 2024.
Yeah, my thing with Burden is I look at him as a best case scenario, a wide receiver 2 in an NFL offense that's highly productive. And some of the guys that I have above him, I think could be ones. My number 3, to no surprise to you, I don't think, is Emeka Egbuka. I've been very high on Egbuka. Where's he on your list?
No, he's 4, and I go back and forth between him and Burden. So I
have Egbuka at 3 on my list. He just finds a way to get open, man. And some guys have that knack, some guys don't. And Egbuka just has that ability to quickly diagnose what the defense is doing and figure out the best way to get open consistently. I think he can make any catch, truthfully. And while the speed isn't amazing, I think he has great open field speed. Like, the yak ability, I think, is underrated for Egbuka. Obviously, the route running gets talked about at a very high level, and any NFL team would be very happy to have him in their slot, but he's very similar to Jackson Smith and Jigba, in my opinion. Came out of the same school, obviously, so it's not a surprise there, but JSN, I think he got touted a lot as a slot wide receiver, but we saw this year, that could be the wide receiver 1 on your team, and DK Metcalf was on that team, and I don't think it was particularly close. Like, JSN outplayed DK all year. Emeka Egbuka, I think, could come into the NFL and be a 100 reception level player. And if I can get that kind of production out of a guy, I'm going to have no problem taking him in the first round. And listen, I don't like to, give grades or whatever based on the helmet that a guy wears. But in recent years, it's not a bad look to be an Ohio State wide receiver. JSN, Garrett Wilson, Terry McLaurin, like, they've been producing some pretty high-level talent, and I think Emeka Egbuka is next on that list. You had him at 4, though, so let's hear your analysis on Egbuka.
Yeah, I think kind of echoing everything you said, I just don't really – I think he's probably going to be a receiver too. Like, I think his speed is honestly underrated compared to, like, what other people say, but I think he's just – what you're going to get out of him at his best is out of the slot. I think he's adequate to play outside. Like, I don't think he's pigeonholed to the slot.
I think it's similar to JSN, where your best utilization is in the slot, which is why I didn't really like the Cooper Kupp signing for Seattle, because I think in some ways that hurts the best you could get out of JSN. But I don't think either guy is limited to the slot.
Yeah, I just see JSN as a bit more explosive. Like, I don't see it as much. I see the tracking really well, and I think the hands are really good, and he's great against zone, but I just don't think he's very as good against man as JSN was, and that's my thing. I think where he wins is, from the slot, being able to find soft spots in zone. I think he's fine against, one-on-one man, but I just don't really see it as much with him.
Yeah, that's just where we differ, because I seriously think that this is a 100 reception level guy. Like, I think he could lead your team in catches, and you could have a high level offense. people talk about the Texans saying that they have to draft offensive line. I promise you this, if he's on the board at 25, he will be a Houston Texan, and they won't have a second thought about it. And it won't be a bad pick, in my estimation. So you have Egbuka at 4. I had Luther Burden at 6. So I'm going to say my number 4 is Kyle Williams. I think Kyle Williams, I'm falling in love with the prospect. I know it's a popular prospect that people are falling in love with. Did he make your top 8?
Yeah, and I really like Williams as well.
Where did you have him?
So I have him at 6.
Okay, so I have Kyle Williams here at 4, so I think he is shiftier than Luther Burden. I think he's the shiftiest player in this draft class. I think he can kill you deep. I think he's a massive screen threat, good across the middle of the field. I don't think he's necessarily an elite route runner, but I think he's an elite playmaker. And man, in the NFL, you could find a spot for an elite playmaker yesterday on any offense. I think Kyle Williams, NFL teams are going to have no choice but to get this guy on the football field. The way that we saw the Broncos have no choice but to get Marvin Mims involved last year because of what he could do with the football in his hands, that's going to be the NFL team that drafts Kyle Williams. He is not the most polished route runner, but you're going to have no choice but to get this guy 4 to 5 touches a game and just let him work with the football.
I love that. And I'll talk about him a bit more once we get to my 6. So we're at my 5 then, right?
You're number 5, yep.
Yeah, my 5 is Matthew Golden, and I've heard people saying he could be the first receiver drafted, which is a bit.
I have Golden at 7. I'm even lower on Golden, and I thought it was going to be a hot take, and maybe it's not as hot for you, but I don't know. I think this is a case of combine fever, where the guy ran a fast 40, so now we're in love with him, and we think he should be a top 15 pick. I don't have a first-round grade on him.
Yeah, it's not so much the combine why I have him high, because I think a lot of
I don't even think 5's that high, to be honest, because like you said, I've seen people have him over Tet, which is insane, but I've seen people put him over Hunter and Egbuka, and I'm like, whoa, time out. What happened?
I think he's consensusly over Egbuka at this point. I think he's the consensus 3.
Which I mean, I'm an Egbuka stan, so I can't stand it, but I think it's blasphemy.
No, I agree. No, and the reason why I won't say it's ridiculous is because I see the upside with Golden. Like, he has played his best football closest to the NFL draft. In that playoffs, when they finally realized Isaiah Bond is not the answer and got Golden involved, he looked ridiculous. He was so good. He was fantastic. And for that reason, when the lights are bright, when you're playing against close to NFL competition as you possibly could want, that matters a ton for me. But what I have to look at as well is the context. He didn't produce really at all before this year. And even this year, he wasn't great from counting-wise. Played at Houston, transferred out of there, was never dominant even as the wide receiver 1 there. So you got to kind of got questions about that. But I will say, what I think he does best is he is such a smooth route runner. And rather than being, I don't think his 4.29 tape shows up. I think his best trait is his deceleration. The way he can stop on a dime, get back to the football, and just leave defenders looking silly is what makes me excited about him. But I think there's a lot of polish to be had. I think there's a lot of risk because the sample size isn't as big. So wide receiver 3 is rich for me, but I have him pretty comfortably as I guess not comfortably because I have Kyle Williams could jump him, but he's clearly in my top 6, to be honest.
Yeah, I have Golden at 7, and I feel like it's going to come across as, I'm sipping on haterade. I think 7 is the end of a tier for me, which we'll get to when I'll break down the tiers kind of at the end, but I think Tet, Hunter, and Egbuka is my tier 1, and then I think 4 through 7 is my tier 2. So if you wanted to put Matthew Golden at 4, I'm not going to sit here and argue with you all night about it. I think over Egbuka is absolutely crazy, and I'll defend that take to the death of me, but if you wanted Golden as high as 4, I don't think it's a problem. The guy is, without a doubt, an excellent deep threat, a field stretcher, and there are certainly teams that I think the fit is great with. I think the reason you see him going over Egbuka in drafts is because the fit with Dallas does clearly show itself with what CeeDee Lamb could do on the first two levels, getting a field stretcher in Matthew Golden, who I think Brandon Cooks is a fair NFL comp for the guy. So getting a younger, better version of Brandon Cooks would kind of just seamlessly fit in their offense. I think the Packers at 23 should be looking at Golden if he's available, especially with the Christian Watson ACL injury, because they desperately need a field stretcher. If you need a field stretcher in this draft and you take Matthew Golden, I'm not going to be mad at the pick because, truthfully, in terms of just being a deep threat, he might be the number one deep threat in the class, and I don't think that that's crazy to say. But aside from that, like you said, I think the rest of his game needs polishing. He's fine. He's not going to be bad. But I think on a high-level offense, a wide receiver 3, potential wide receiver 2. But I'm just not as crazy about him as some other people that are putting him in top 2 conversations at this point in time.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I totally get that. But my 6 is kind of...
I didn't get to my 5.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't talk about my 5 yet.
Okay, let's hear it.
My 5 is Tre Harris out of Ole Miss. And we talked about this with Tet. I value size. I think just at the end of the day, this is a big man sport. And outside of Tet McMillan, Tre Harris has the next best build of a true X at the NFL level. 6'3". He's a true deep threat too. I mean, I know that the Ole Miss offense is simple, but you have to be able to go get the ball. Tre Harris, at his size, was able to go get the ball. And if you pair him with a gunslinger, I think that Tre Harris is a guy that the Packers should look at too. I love also what he was able to do in the open field. He is a worse Tet McMillan. That is like kind of how I can describe him, but he's stronger. He's got a bigger build to him. But I think if you're looking for a true X, strong, big body, wide receiver, and Tet's gone, Tre Harris, I would take him over Matthew Golden today. And I feel pretty good about saying that because what Golden lacks in size, Tre Harris doesn't. And Tre Harris is close enough to me as a deep threat that I'm happy to go and take Tre Harris out of Ole Miss. Did he crack your top 8? I feel like I'm ridiculously high on him in some ways.
He's my 11. I have him as high as 10.
Yeah, I know that I'm high on Tre Harris. And again, I think some of this is just due to some of my, how I view football. But at the end of the day, a big body wide receiver that's got speed, sign me up. Because the potential for that guy is through the roof.
No, that's what I was going to say. I think it's just what you need for an offense and what you value because...
And also, what have we seen from these big body wide receivers out of Ole Miss with speed? A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, do those guys ring a bell? I'm not saying he's going to be them, but...
No.
Are you thinking of N'Keal Harry?
No. Because when I went to the Combine, someone asked the most wild question I ever heard, and it was in relation to that. It was... what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do to make sure your career pans out more like a AJ Brown and not it was Jonathan Mingo, I think. He name dropped Jonathan Mingo in the question. He's like, what are you gonna do to make sure your career doesn't pan out like Jonathan Mingo? And that video clip went kind of viral on Twitter. I remember I was standing in front of the dude. You could see me turn around, and I just went to the camera. I'm like, did he just say that? Did he just blast Mingo? And I hate Mingo.
But you don't blast him.
What?
Like that. Yeah, no, that's crazy. But what do you think about Tre Harris?
Yeah, so anyway, going back to Harris, I think he is... The reason I don't have him as high is because I think he can really only do one thing very well, but that's something that you really want from an outside receiver, and that's stretch the field, be your big body X. And I think the upside is limited to what he can do, with his route tree, with actually catching the ball, with creating separation, but if you're just looking for a guy to create space underneath, play that outside receiver role, I mean, I think he's definitely a top 8 guy in that specific role, and it's not crazy at all. It's just I'm more of a guy that wants to shoot for upside, wants to get a guy that can maybe be more of the playmaker, do more than just only stretch defenses, because I think that could be replaced just cheaper in the NFL draft, in my opinion, by I can do this just super fast that doesn't have the other skills, but it's not crazy to say at all if you're looking for just an outside X receiver. I think he's top 8 in that for sure.
Yeah, I get that. So your 6 is Kyle Williams. My 6 is Luther Burden. We talked at length about Burden, but I'll let you get your piece in about Kyle Williams here.
Yeah, no, normally, every time I talk about Williams, I'm the guy that has him higher, and I get to talk him up, but
yeah.
You already said everything, basically.
I got him at 4.
Yeah, basically that I could want, and that's really just, for me, the talking points are, he's a guy that is elite in the open field, and you know who he kind of reminds me of, play style-wise?
Who's that?
High-end comp, I'm saying play style, not he's going to be this player, but when he has the ball in a slant route, he kind of reminds me of a Jamar Chase. Is that crazy to say?
I felt the same way watching his highlights, I was like, hold up. What do we got here with this?
Exactly.
This is interesting. And then I was like, which dynasty leagues am I in?
Yeah,
we were talking off camera about, you were saying that in our dynasty league, I should look to trade for a high-end wide receiver. At 109, I might just take Kyle Williams.
Yeah, not if I get him with the 108 first.
Hey, hopefully Luther Burden's on the board, because if you don't pick him, I'll say, hey, what about your rankings?
Yeah, no, hey, you have to take Luther Burden. He's ranked higher. No, but with Williams, what really surprises me is he's a smaller guy, but he wins versus man coverage, and he's also very good in contested catch situations. I think a lot of it's just more of him using his body to, track the ball. But I mean, I think his numbers are a little skewed by PFF, 62.5%. He's not winning in the contested catch department the same as Ted McMillan, to where it's 50-50 balls. But when he's getting, I'll just say his size does not, pose as a massive weakness, even though he's not he's listed 186 on PFF. So that's what I like about him. The reason why I have him lower is just the context surrounding him. He's a fifth-year senior, and you didn't really see that breakout, the really big breakout, until 2024. Washington State, not super big school, so got a little question about if the level of competition maybe props him up and makes him look a little better. And also, he didn't really do anything through his junior season at UNLV. He cracked 601 receiving yards.
A late bloomer
before that, but so that's why I have some concerns. That's why I think the risk is a little higher. Why I'm more willing to put a guy like Burden over him, to where I saw him put up 1,300 yards as a sophomore at Missouri.
But no, that's fair. That's fair criticism.
But the film I'm in love with. He is a guy that I love.
So at my 7, I had Matthew Golden. We talked at length about him already. Who is your number 7?
My 7 is Jayden Higgins. Is he crack your top 8?
He did not. And
really?
I have some criticisms of Higgins, but I'll let you say your piece.
No, and I'm not the biggest Higgins. That's not true. I like Higgins a decent bit. But I will say, the reason why I say I'm a little lower than him the most is because I've been hearing buzz about him going to the first round to a team like the
I don't think so. I don't think so
either, but
I don't have a first round grade on him. And I think he's a late second round grade for me, maybe third.
No, I agree. I'm just saying.
He was number 9. He just missed my list. Okay. So I'm not too low on him. But I really question his ability to separate at the NFL level. Because there were some struggles with that in college. And his catch radius and contested catch ability, I think, covered up a lot of that. And I just question how much that would be able to translate at the NFL level.
Yeah, and I'll tell you why I have him at 7 then over you at 9, and that's because basically saw the exact same thing, except I saw him at the Senior Bowl, and he looked really good in one-on-ones. He surprised me with his ability to separate. I'm like, oh, this is Jayden Higgins, the guy that I didn't really see it as much on tape. So, of course that's practice, but I think he showed, what that tells me is he has it in him. It's in there. And if he puts that all together, he has the size that other players don't at 6'4", 215 on PFF. That's something that you don't really – that's something teams are drooling over as an X receiver that can do all the other things well.
Yeah, for sure. Who was your number 8?
My number 8 is his teammate, Jaylin Noel.
Okay, I did not have Noel, so
That's fair.
you
Yeah,
could say
for
your
me,
piece there.
Noel is kind of similar in the way that he's a little bit the opposite. He's a smaller guy that I've questioned if he can win on the outside, and he impressed me at the Senior Bowl as well. Like he dominated in the slot, and then wasn't very good against man on tape, but I saw it flash in the Senior Bowl, and that's where I kind of bumped him up there. But he's very explosive with the ball in his hands. He has really good hands as well, and he finds a way to get open. He kind of reminds me of a Emeka Egbuka light, and I know how much you love him. So that's kind of where I'm at. So where I think he wins best in the slot, but also if you have to play him outside, like I think it's not the end of the world. I think he has it in there to win as next.
Yeah, that's fair. My number 8 is Tez Johnson out of Oregon. I think that he is not the purest wide receiver, but I think you have to find ways to get him the ball in your offense because when he gets the ball, he makes magic on the football field. This isn't a guy who is absolutely elite in the open field. I can tell that you don't like him, and that's fine. To me, he reminds me of Marvin Mims, which it's not exactly like this world beater that I'm talking about here, but I think Tez Johnson has the ability to make 1 to 2 plays in a football game that completely change the game. I think he's better than Troy Franklin, and I think he has great speed. My major question with him is his size. I just don't know if at his size he's going to be able to handle NFL bodies. Like Tez Johnson meeting Fred Warner in the middle of the field has me like scared for Tez Johnson's life. But when he has the field, I think elite plays happen.
I think major concern is an understatement. He is 154 pounds. Like
Dude,
I'm generally concerned that he could have a career-ending retirement in week 1 if he
yeah, like
faces
the size
no
is a
linebacker.
massive concern, but he's also it's not like he's playing kindergartners at the college
Yeah,
level. Like he's
that's
on
true.
Oregon too, like in the Big Ten, in the college football playoffs, making massive plays. So it's not like he's just playing D3 football and we're like,
No,
let's
yeah,
draft
that's a
this
good point.
guy. So, you know, I had the same, and I'm do not hear what I'm not saying. I am not even close to comparing Tez Johnson to this player. But I had the same size concerns for Devonta Smith coming out of college. And Devonta Smith, it's never been a problem. The guy doesn't miss football games, and the guy is an absolute beast. So if he's able to make it work at his size, I think Tez Johnson could potentially translate his skills and the size not be a problem. And again, this is a wide receiver 3, but this is a wide receiver 3 that you find a way to get the ball to a couple times a game because he has the ability to turn any play into a home run.
Yeah, and
And
that's a
it's
fair
kind of the
argument.
same as your running back rankings.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fair. I see. I mean, Devonta Smith I think he's
Again,
the best college receiver of
and
all time.
in no
So
way
that's
am
why.
I saying that Tez Johnson is comparable to Devonta Smith in anything other than size.
I mean, also Devonta Smith is also somehow significantly bigger than Tez Johnson. He's 170.
Yeah,
Johnson's
well,
154.
he could put on some pounds. I
15
mean,
pounds. 15
I didn't say
pounds.
15. I didn't say 15, but if he can get to
Uh,
that 160 mark, I think he could.
yeah. No, I
Listen, we'll
think
see if
Tank
it
Dell.
happens. Tank Dell's also a fine
That's where I
comp.
see more for him as like
And
upper
but
echelon.
you
And
talk
Tank Dell.
about, prayers for a speedy recovery, but that's the injury risk.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of different for me too because I think I actually like Tank Dell because Tank
I like
Dell.
Tank Dell more than Tez Johnson, by the way.
No, I agree too. I honestly, I'm like not gonna compare the two for injury concerns because I think Tank's injuries
That
were
was
kind of like
fluky.
freak. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I
But
also think the
the
game's
points
just so set up to protect the offensive player nowadays as
true. That's
well
a good point. I like that
that
point.
I think Tez Johnson at his size, it's less concerning. Now, like again, do I want him meeting Fred Warner over the middle? Like I would suggest Tez Johnson take some Tyler Lockett approaches to being tackled and just get down to the ground. But
Hmm.
plays are to be made, and I think Tez Johnson has game-changing playability. And
Yeah.
that's the kind of guy that I want on my team. Do I want him on the field every down? No, If it's a run play, like, no thanks. I don't need him out there blocking. But I have him at 8. Going over my list again. At 1, I got Tet McMillan. 2, Travis Hunter. 3, Emeka Egbuka. 4, Kyle Williams. 5, Tre Harris. 6, Luther Burden. 7, Matthew Golden. 8, Tez Johnson. And I do want to clarify, tier 1 is Tet to Egbuka. Tier 2 is Kyle Williams to Matthew Golden. And then Tez Johnson starts a long tier 3 for me, where some bias certainly came in with being an Oregon fan and just liking the big playability, but I just want to clarify where those tiers are at, because I know people are going to see Matthew Golden next to Tez Johnson, and what are you even talking? No, I wouldn't take Tez Johnson over Matthew Golden. It wouldn't be a conversation. So, like, let's just be clear there. Like, that is a teardrop for me.
Yeah.
Let's hear your list one more time.
Yeah, I'll put my tiers in real quick, too. I think tier 1, Tet McMillan and Travis Hunter. Tier 2 is going to be Luther Burden, Emeka Egbuka, Matthew Golden, Kyle Williams. Tier 3 for me is going to be Jayden Higgins at 7 and Jaylin Noel. And then at tier 20, at wide receiver 23 is Tez Johnson for me.
Hey,
I'm sorry. I had to get that in there.
Hey, it's fine. Listen, the great thing about draft analysis is we have the opportunity to see what happens and see who was right.
Yeah,
the speculation's fun, but when you make predictions, we get to see how they follow up. Steve, man, I really appreciate you. For those who have been following the series, me and Steve are at the hour and 37 recording mark. So appreciate Steve for, giving us all his time. And seriously, check out the website, check out his YouTube channel. All are linked in the description. You want film breakdowns on some of these players, they're there on his YouTube channel. If you haven't checked out the quarterback and running back videos, check those out. The NFL draft is tomorrow when this is coming out. So, or today, if you're watching it the day after, or if you're watching it after the draft. I don't know why, but maybe you wanted more thoughts on these prospects. So anyways, appreciate you joining. If you love the NFL, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We will catch you guys next time. Peace.